All right, guys, so the very first thing a lot of people think about before they even buy their van is the layout they're going to build inside their van. Now, this is super important, and you need to understand the layout you want probably before you even buy your van. There's certain limitations in layouts and with layouts, the way you have your beds, that will determine the type of van that you should and need to buy. So, the very first thing you need to determine is the whole goal of the van and what it's going to do for you and its entire purpose. So whether that's being a weekender van that you're going to just take on short adventures, whether you're going to have a significant other with you or like two kids and a dog is going to determine like the size of van. The layout of your bed is going to determine the width of van you're going to get. There is a whole nother video on the different van options available, which it can be a little bit overwhelming, that we'll link down below. But I'd say before anything, you need to kind of figure out the purpose of your build and what it's going to do for you. And then you can pick your van and your layout and you can go from there. So the very first thing I usually do once I pick out my van, whether you buy it or you don't, there are dimensions online. If you buy it, you can just measure. And then I'll just do a rough draft on a piece of paper and I'll draw the layout out. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm not an artist and none of my layout drawings are professional by any means, but this will kind of give you a rough feel of the layout within the specific dimensions of your van. So step one is done. You drew a rough draft of your van. Number two, you're going to want to actually lay it out in your van. And we're at kind of that layout stage in this van build where you're going to need to finalize mostly everything and lay it out in the van to make sure everything fits and all your components fit, etc. So something that we did and we do in all our van builds is on this final layout stage, we'll take masking tape and tape down the layout. So if you look here in the actual van on the ground, we've kind of laid out this layout. This layout specifically is a dinette style. And we've got our two couches, our kitchenette will go over here. We've got a sink, and then all like the water components will go here. Just tape down your layout. Some people will actually build little cardboard structures, which can be really helpful to visualize how stuff works. But the most important part about this stage is making sure your components fit into your structural pieces. And this right here is a good example. This is why I have this laid out here. This is where our water tank's gonna go. Now, looking at it, it's obviously not gonna fit inside this couch in this orientation. So we have to decide at this stage how we're gonna adjust this layout to fit some of our components. Because we could buy a different water tank, buy a smaller one to fit this layout, but we could also adjust our structures just a little bit to make things fit. It's gonna just be up to you and kind of up to your discretion of what and how you want to do it. So if having the couch exactly this depth is really, really important and your water tank doesn't fit in there, well, you're gonna need to buy a different water tank. But if it really doesn't matter if you add an inch to the depth to make the water tank fit, then you're going to be totally fine. In this case, the water tank isn't going to fit. We wanted to have a 21-gallon tank on board, but we're actually going to just increase the depth of our couch. So currently, we've got it set at 24 inches deep. We're going to need it to be more 26 or 27 inches. The other question is, do we match that on this side, and how would that change this area? Another thing that I wanted to show you guys is what I do. You can do this on a piece of paper. It's super messy. I can read it and understand it. You can use a piece of paper. I'm using an iPad. So I have my core layout, and then I have the dimensions of all my different components. My fridge, my water tank, my sink, all this stuff. Because for instance, right here, this is our sink area. Is our sink base cabinet deep enough to fit our sink? Well, a good thing to do before you start building your base cabinet is get your sink and put it in this spot and layout and make sure you have enough space for your drains, for your faucet. So before you even build the base cabinet, just get this rough layout in, bring all your components in here, rough draft it and make sure everything fits. Another thing to consider with depth, in this case our kitchenette, we need to make sure it's deep enough to fit our fridge. But what kind of countertops are we using? Are we building a custom one? Are we buying like off the shelf countertops? Because off the shelf countertops have a specific depth. And so in our case, we are using an off the shelf countertop, and I know the exact depth of it. It's 26 inches deep, and so that'll give us, in this case, a 2-inch overhang. So we do have a little room to play with the kitchen if, for instance, our fridge was a little big and we needed to fit that in there, dependent upon slide depths and thickness of the material. These are just things that you really need to consider when you're doing your actual layout. Just to recap, first thing, get a rough idea of the layout that you want, the purpose of your van. Once you get your van, do your final layout. Final, I say final because sometimes there are final and weird adjustments that you'll have to make down the road. But just get all the components that you want to use, get them inside your van, and then make sure everything is going to fit and work properly. If you have any questions, let me know down below, and thanks again for watching.